we're going to bring this meeting to order. Roll call, please, Lacey.
Chair Hedges.
Here.
Vice Chair Azevedo is absent. Member Askey.
Here.
Member Delap.
Here.
Member Jafarian.
Here.
Thank you. We will now say the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise, and will you lead us, Mark?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mark. We'll now read the appeal notice. Alma?
All right. In the event that you disagree with the action taken by the Planning Commission in regards to your application, or with any condition of approval of the application which is not a specific requirement of the Norco Municipal Code, you are entitled to appeal such determination or conditions to the Norco City Council, provided that such appeal is filed with the City Norco Clerk within 10 calendar days after the requirements for appeals, inclusive of payment of an appeal fee.
Thank you, Alma. Now, Lacey, do you want me to read this for public comments first?
Yes, please.
Okay, we are now having the public comments area, and this is for items that are not listed on the agenda. Let me read this. Now's the time to dial in for public comment. You will be placed in a queue, and your call will be answered in the order received. You will have 3 minutes to speak. The call will disconnect promptly at the end of 3 minutes. You will need to call during each item you wish to speak on. Callers are asked to abide by public decorum and use language that is appropriate to a public environment. Please dial 951-582-5557 now. If you choose not to call in, please email your public comments to planning.ci.norco.ca.us. Please identify the item you are referencing.
Matt, do you have any calls in the queue?
And you have no papers.
I have no public comment.
Well, we'll close this area and we'll bring it back.
Item number 2.
No, we're doing items that are not on the agenda right now. Do you mean 1 or 2? 1 or 2? You can come up. Come on, I can come up.
The print on this is so small that I misread it. Do I need to turn this on or nope? It's good?
Yep.
Okay. Madam Chairman and Commissioners, I did a little bit of a drive today. I had to go down to the south part of town, and I drove by the new CarMax facility that's going in. And I was a little bit concerned because I remember all the hearings that we had trying to get everything developed and be complaining and such, very similar to what you're going to have to be deciding tonight. My understanding, and I know there's a number of issues there, and I'm not going to get into them all, but the one glaring thing that came to my attention was that we were going to have the entrance to CarMax off of 2nd Street. Now, I did see an entrance that they are developing there off of 2nd Street, but I also saw one coming in off of Valley View, but behind that, or between that wall, and I'm kind of surprised. I didn't think that was supposed to be there because they weren't going to be impacting the local neighborhood there on Valley View. I just thought I'd bring it to your attention. I'm concerned that how it could be approved when the commission and everybody else saw it on the plans that it wasn't going to be there. So it's just a concern that I had, and sometimes things are getting approved that I think are contrary to what the commission and everybody else thought was going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, we'll close this portion and bring it back to number 2, public hearing. Alma, I think you're up.
I'm up?
You're up.
Oh,
Is it a public comment? Your time starts now. You have 3 minutes to speak. Your time starts now. Can you hear me? Time starts now.
Hi, good evening, members of the commission. My name is Angel Esparza. I'm a member of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters here in the Inland Empire. This is for. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi,
Make sure he's speaking on the right item here.
My name is Angel Esparza. I'm a member of the.
Your computer or device you're watching the video on, please.
Can you hear me? Hi, good evening, members of the commission. My name is Angel. Are you guys on item 2?
We
No.
are not.
Okay, I want to go ahead and speak on item 2.
No,
My apologies.
you can't
Okay.
right now.
You'll need to call back at that time when we open the comments for that item.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
And now we need to figure out why. Yeah?
Before we begin, can we make sure that people in the hallway can hear us?
Want me to do the switches, Matt?
Alma, you're up.
I'm up.
You're up.
Okay, well, I'm going to lower my mask, and that's okay. Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, good evening. Agenda item 2B through 2G is a mixed-use development proposed at the southwest corner of Hamner and 3rd Street. Just briefly, I'm going to give a brief introduction, and then I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to the developer who is going to be making a presentation to the Planning Commission. Basically, what this is a proposed mixed-use project to consist of multifamily residential dwellings and commercial uses all on 19 acres, generally located, as I indicated, on the southwest corner of 3rd Street and Hamner Avenue. And what is before you is a series of entitlements that need to happen: conditional use permits, variance, site plan approval, tentative parcel map, and in essence, the environmental impact report that will be required to be certified to approve the project. And that's just a brief introduction. I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to the developer. Their PowerPoint presentation will be put on the screen, and then the presentation will be brought back to me. I will be basically giving a hopefully brief analysis of the project. And with that, I will conclude right now. Thank you.
All right. Hey, good evening. Maybe turn on the PowerPoint.
Hold on.
The developer's going first, Matt. I'm sorry.
All right. Good evening, commissioners. Tim Nguyen and Andrew Winterstrom, my colleague with Frontier Communities. This month marks the 2-year anniversary when we first stepped into this building and began this journey with the city on our project. So The next couple of minutes, we'll walk you through, I'll just give you a brief introductions of who we are, walk the audience through the site locations and the site history, provide you a project vision and a couple of site plans that we have worked on, discuss and describe to you our robust outreach efforts and how we incorporate those concerns, insights, and feedback from the public, provide you a project benefits, and we are very eager to listen to your questions and insights after we conclude this presentation. So, who is Frontier? We are a locally based, homegrown company. Our employees and most of our work is all in the IE. And since we've been in business just over 20 years, we have become the largest private home builder in the Inland Empire, have since built over 7,000 homes and 700,000 square feet of commercial. We have top leadership that has deep local roots and experience, and we take leadership roles in the community, civic affairs, and philanthropy. And in fact, everything that we do and give back is all in the Inland Empire. I'm very happy and I think fortunate to have an all-star consulting team by my side throughout this project. From the architects to landscape architects and everything in between. I think if you look them up, they are the best in the industries. But more importantly, they were brought on to this project because of the deep experience working in Norco and understanding challenges and issues such as the environmental, traffic, and really the Norco's unique culture. And lastly, I'd like to acknowledge city staff for their very critical but also collaborative working relationships with them from the top down to Andy, Alma, Chad, Brian, Roger, and many more. Between all of us that's been working on this project, it's literally been thousands pages of documents, review time, hours spent. Me personally, I have met over and got feedback from over 100 residents and small business owners. We met at coffee shops, parks, over Zoom, invited to their homes, and at their business. And tonight is really a culmination of all that effort, insights, and hard work and feedback. With that said, I'd like to hand it off to my colleague, Andrew, and we'd like to present to you Norco Valley Square. Thanks.
Thanks for the introduction, Tim. I'll try to speak loud so the people outside can hear me. Good evening, commissioners. Excited to be here in front of you. It's been a long time coming, as Tim said. I will try to go fairly quickly through the presentation. I know many members of the public have seen it several times as we worked our way through the various commissions, but feel free to, if I'm going too fast, slow me down at any time. I also have my entire consulting team here, so if we want to get into some more technical questions or get into the meat of it a little later on, we can do that. At first, I really just want to bring everybody through this 2-year process and kind of walk everybody through what we've been doing. It's been, like I said, a long time coming from the Land Act portion of it up front to first approaching staff with the idea of would they be willing to talk about something like this, meeting with the elected officials, reaching out to all the different groups here, the college, of course, working through the commissions, the decision to do an EIR, which is in and of itself an 18-month process. I'll just like to walk everybody through all that. I think everybody's aware of where the site is located at 3rd and Hamner, but I'm not sure that everybody's necessarily aware that vacant land is not always exactly vacant. It's been a challenge since we've controlled this land. We've been working very closely with the sheriff's department. Every time they call us with home encampments and vagrancy and whatnot, we go out there, of course, and take care of that and clean it up. But it's dangerous. They start fires. And it's a problem. So I know everybody knows it's vacant, but it's not always quite vacant. So going back to the beginning, the Land Act function, this is an absolutely gorgeous property. There's really not that much, 19 acres in a core city like this, the core Inland Empire. Sites like this are, far and few between. And so When we were first approached with this site, it was almost shocking. Like, how could something like this even be here? How does it still exist? So the first step is to dig in and realize, well, it's what we call an assemblage, meaning it's actually 3 parcels and not different owners. So that always makes development challenging. It's also got an irregular shape, which makes it challenging to develop. The way it juts to the west there. It's got a leaseholder on it, the RV, and it's got really complicated zoning. I'm sure you guys know that it's part of the oldest SP, or I don't know if it's the oldest, certainly one of the oldest SPs in the entire city, the Auto Mall specific plan. It was made clear to us that more car dealerships, after just having gone through CarMax and everything, was not something that seemed too palatable at the time. And regardless, it had this multifamily overlay that was put on it. So very complicated zoning, and all of that sort of led to, okay, we understand why this is still here, but it's still a really, really valuable property. So when the original idea to even come to the city to approach an idea like this, which we knew would be controversial, but the original reason we reached out is having had the experience of trying to be helpful in other cities. The tide's been turning here for many years. If you go back far enough, we didn't even used to do high density because it was so controversial, and we like to be the good guys. We come out of single family detached, just like many other home builders. But as the tide's been turning and cities have been getting sued, I happen to be a resident of City of Riverside, a neighboring city here, and have lots of relationships there. And when they got sued, they turned to us for help. We have great relationships, and they didn't have the zoning in place. Basically, their housing element was not in compliance. And so they got sued, and as part of that settlement, there was a big program they needed to go through of upzoning all over the city, and it was very unpopular. And we helped them. We worked with them on updating their zoning, and we purchased one of the largest sites in the city, and helped them get credit for upzoning it. So coming out of that, I had the attitude of maybe we can be helpful in other cities. And so that's why we even reached out to at the then planning director, Steve King, and also the economic development director, and just said, what do you guys think? I mean, this is already zoned for it. If we worked with you and collaboratively, do you think we could be part of a solution to help you with your housing element? And so they were very open and honest, and talked about it would be difficult, it would be challenging, and there would be a lot of concessions that would need to be made, but they were open to the idea. And so we started down that journey. Just for anybody in the audience who doesn't know the zoning, I can walk them through a little bit real quick. It's, as I said, part of the specific Auto Mall specific plan, but has the housing overlay on it, which requires 20 to 30 dwelling units to the acre. Over time, I think we've done a pretty good job answering this question, but just for anybody that doesn't know, we used to get a lot of the question, why 3 stories? Why not 2? And the answer is because you can't hit 20 dwelling units to the acre with 2-story product. So it's not necessarily a choice we made, it's what the zoning is. It allows for commercial, but of course does not require it. This could be all residential per the zoning, but we think that the Hamner location is just it's a gorgeous location for commercial. We think something could really be successful here. When the RENA numbers went down, we all got pretty excited. We, meaning us as the applicant and staff, because we work so collaboratively, in saying that this was sort of our intention from day one. Is, man, we could do a one and done project. Norco can basically, if this one goes through, you can go back to defending the half-acre style of life and show that you've done your share for the next entire housing element cycle in one project. So that was kind of always what we wanted to do, is be part of the solution and help satisfy the housing element. The crazy thing is over time, this has gotten worse. I was watching your recent workshop on the housing element, and the new laws that are coming in. Before it was just lawsuits, and now it's just getting crazier and crazier with what the state's pushing on everybody. So we definitely came into this just wanting to be a humble part of the solution and bring the best project for the city, knowing that wasn't necessarily going to be the most popular, but we wanted to do the best project we possibly could with this zoning. as part of that, even though from the very beginning, no one was going to require anything other than a standard mitigated deck for this project, we voluntarily decided to do a full EIR, knowing that we would be here today and there'd be a lot of tough questions, and it was just something that we decided was the right thing to do, and totally voluntary, not required in any way, shape, or form, but we knew that by studying all these issues, we'd be in a much better position to answer tough questions, and also the outreach aspect that an EIR requires. We thought that was going to be really important to get, huge levels of community feedback. Unfortunately, that outreach took different forms than we would have originally wanted. The typical EIR process is we come, we set up, a shop and host events for people to come and give their feedback. But if, our very first event was scheduled for April of 2020. And so we all know why that didn't happen. So we had to do a completely different outreach campaign. We did everything from, sending letters, we hired a company to help us try to get valid phone numbers. We canvassed and door knocked. We did everything to get to as many people. If you wanted to meet with us, we were about as accessible as you could possibly, as we could possibly make ourselves. We also did, citywide outreach to, the different organizations that are here in Norco. We did numerous, even just one-on-one. If just one person, was interested enough to reach out, we'd set up one-on-one Zoom meetings, and we did, dozens and dozens of those. We did so many of those that after a while we thought, why don't we just launch a website that has all of this information on it? That way, rather than take time out of people's busy schedule, if they reach out, we can say, here's my number, talk to me anytime. But in the meantime, here's a website. So we launched that a couple of months ago when we weren't able to go before the February Planning Commission. So we have done a ton of outreach to try to get out there, and it's been really beneficial. The project has changed, and we'll go over the confusion right now. I think another thing we get a lot is confusion over the hotel. So I'd like to clear that up. And the way that it changed was a part of the EIR process and all the outreach we did. We heard the public, loud and clear that the hotel was by far the most unpopular aspect. It's really tall. As you see before you, we'd need a variance for that to even be approved at 4 stories. The traffic that a 4-story, 120-room hotel generates is fairly significant. It's more than what we end up doing in the alternative. We just heard a lot of not another hotel. Is that really what we need? People were very vocal about that aspect of it. And when we, as part of the EIR process, studied, well, what happens if it goes away and you see all of the impacts go down? We thought that was a sacrifice that we were willing to make to make the project better and to listen to the public. And that feedback we've gotten since then has been really positive. A lot of people are happy that the alternative presents a project with no hotel. Now, of course, both of those alternatives are before you today. You're free to vote on either one. But the way that the alternative site plan comes about is by us listening to the feedback that we got from the community. As an additional benefit, and part of what the feedback that we got from the community is that by taking away the hotel, which adds units, we were able to make a 10% affordable, which hits directly at the RENA numbers that the state's looking for. We can address that, and so 10% would be affordable under the alternative. So those are basically the changes that came out of it. Better traffic and better transportation. The hotel's gone. We're now able to address the not just your housing element numbers, but the actual arena affordable component. And then we made other changes, especially directly in collaboration with Paddock Lane. We spent a lot of time talking to those residents because they're obviously the ones that are our physical neighbors. And so we spent a lot of time understanding what they wanted. And we did make some tough choices. We went before Streets and Trails Commission. We've heard from other prominent members of the community that would have liked to see the trail there on the south end go through the site. And we actually had a site plan that did that, where we're trying to make that happen, I should say, early on. But the more we talked with Paddock Lane residents, they really thought that that was something that they felt unsafe and felt like people would be, whether it was college kids parking or people, using that as just a walking trail, that was their private land that was given up as an easement so that their backyards could have equestrian access. And they just felt a lot more safe and secure if our south boundary was completely walled off. So that was another change that we made. So speaking of the trails and the trail system, one of the aspects that we thought was really important to incorporate is how do we use an opportunity that, this is such a unique opportunity to have a trail system like this that would come right to a commercial development. How do we use that and make it functional? And so we have a loop around our food garden that connects to the city's trail system. And again, back to the point about outreach, as we've moved through some of these commissions and as we've talked to the Horsemen's Association and as the more feedback we've gotten from the community, I would love to get your guys' recommendations and maybe put them in the actual record, just so that if we expand that paddock, if we make it, if we slide it down a little bit, I'd love to get some comments from you guys about how we can make that better, or just sort of put them on the record, since we've already heard a lot of the feedback. I know what needs to be done. We've heard feedback from everything of I would never leave my horse somewhere where I couldn't keep my eyes on it. It definitely needs to be enclosed. Just tons and tons of feedback on how to make this functional, which is great because we're developers and we're good at what we do, but we haven't built something quite like this before. And so all the feedback we've been getting on how to make not just a token tie-up, that's what a lot of the feedback is. A lot of these places, they just have a token tie-up, but it doesn't really get used. And so that's important to me and to my team as we move forward through, there's still several months of final engineering that will come if we're so lucky as to get your approval. As we move through that final engineering process and actually design construction documents, I will absolutely be leaning on all the people that have in the community that have committed to me that they're willing to give me feedback on plans and tell me how this works. I'd love to hire a Norco contractor with experience building these things to even build it. I'll definitely, the outreach doesn't stop just because this public hearing is over or council hearing is over. I'm going to need to continue to rely on the community to make the equestrian trail system that comes here real, to make where people want to ride their horse here and come enjoy this amenity. I think that makes the whole thing not only for the people riding it, but also makes it more authentic for out-of-towners and people who want to come experience this really cool amenity. I think if they see Norco residents riding their horse, it kind of adds to the whole feel of the project. So it's something that we'll definitely be doing. So this is from an early sketch all the way to a 3D rendering. This was our idea of how to do something commercial that checked all the boxes that from day one, when we sat with economic development and the former head of planning and said, what are you looking for? What can we do that would be something exciting and something that you could get behind? And so they had a list of things what it needed to be. It needed to be a community gathering space. It needed to be fun. It needed to generate sales taxes. It needed to, there's a long list of things. And so when we were trying to figure out, well, what checks all those boxes, we started to reach out for inspiration. And so one inspiration was Temecula's Vale headquarters. We just liked the look and the feel of it. And as we showed that to different members of either council or staff, everybody said you're going in the right direction, something like that. Then we all the activities, because you can what's called curate it. We would have a specific property manager that would be just for this, that does this, and so you could have weekend events and all kinds of cool stuff. What happened? The other portion for the community garden was we wanted something like, I don't know if anyone's ever been here, but the back half of the property is full of lush landscaping, and it's a really cool area to hang out. And that in combination with the Temecula Vale headquarters was how do we do something like that? And so this was the idea that we actually came up with. I'll just play a quick video here. Does it play? Oop. Technical. Can I get some help, IT? Forgive me.
I go.
So I'm at the end of the boomer generation. I'm just old enough to still have not grown up with technology.
It's great when it works.
Probably a safe bet.
Oh, there it goes.
Can we get it back to full screen?
There you go.
Okay. So, in addition to the one of the challenges with doing something that's sort of where we started, was to figure out the commercial aspect and doing a food garden based on the Western town concept, with the one street down the middle and all the buildings on the sides, with classic architecture that takes you right back to an old Western town. And we got really excited in designing that and sketching it out. And then the further we got along, we said, well, okay, how do we? This is a mixed-use project. Just a parking lot away will be our residential. How do we blend this classic old Western town with the product that we have to build per the zoning? And so that was a challenge to make it, because the project has to all work together once it's all built out. And so we relied heavily on AO, our architecture firm, to come up with those designs. And of course, if we want to go a little further into that later, we can, and they're here to describe a little bit of what we've done. But in general, we tried to take classic Western and agrarian forms, and again, they can talk more about it in detail, whether it's the gables or the materials, and try to make that into modern multifamily. From an economic perspective, of course, this project brings a lot of revenue into the city. From an upfront perspective, it's quite a bit of diff fees. You just take streets and infrastructure loans, over $7.3 million. And there are a lot of projects that are slated to help improve the traffic in the area. I'm sure you've seen the conditions of approval that kind of run up and down Hamner from 2nd to 6th, and this money will go a long way to help with that. I think $17 million, I forget what it is as a percentage of the city's annual budget, but it's a large number. And then, of course, on an ongoing basis, we're estimating about another $1 million per year generated in revenue. So between just from benefits to the city directly, between the upfront diff, the ongoing revenue, and then help with the RENA numbers, we think that this is something that could help the city, and we hope it's seen as part of a solution to a challenging problem. We know it's always a balancing act, and with what the state's trying to do, we just want to be part of the solution. So kind of in summary, we've tried to be as collaborative as we could the whole time. We voluntarily did a full EIR. We studied every aspect. I think there's 18 different categories in an EIR, and they all showed no significant impacts. I do have my EIR consultant here if we want to get into the details. I have my traffic consultant. I have anything you guys want to talk about, we can get into after the public has their own questions or whenever you want. But we do think this provides a range of housing opportunities. We hope students utilize it, because then you could walk right down to the college. Of course, we promote walking in terms of people that would just walk right over and get a meal at the food garden and walk back. We're addressing RENA numbers, and we think that this will be a really vibrant community hub, and attract entrepreneurs and boost commerce. And we tried overall, over the course of 2 years, we've tried very, very hard to design this for Norco and make it something unique and something that everyone can be proud of when it's built. Thank you.
Yeah, let me just switch over to my PowerPoint. Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, this presentation is now back in to me. So, as I indicated earlier, this is a proposal for a mixed-use project. Let's see here. It's a proposed mixed-use project to consist of multifamily residential dwellings and commercial uses on 3 parcels totaling approximately 19.1 acres and generally located at the southwest corner of 3rd Street and Hamner Avenue. The site, as I indicated, is approximately 19 acres, and it has a zoning designation. It's Area D of the Norco Automall specific plan, which has an underlying zoning designation of commercial general, which is a CG zone, and a housing development overlay, which allows residential, high-density residential uses. As far as surrounding property around the project site, to the north, CG zoning developed with retail and office uses to the north, and a little bit if you go to the west of that, you have the Norco College. Automall specific plan zoning developed with retail uses to the east, a flood control channel, and A1 zoning developed with single-family residential to the south, and A1 zoning developed with single-family residential, and open space zoning developed with an institutional, which is Norco College Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math, better known as the STEM Center, to the west. And I'd also like to point out that to the south, where the residential properties are, there is a private horse trail, and also to the partially to the west is also a horse trail, and I'll point it out in just a second. Just a brief introduction or brief summary of the Hdo zone. The Hdo zone was strategically placed on commercial properties here in the city to be able to accommodate our regional housing needs assessment allocation, or better known as our RENA numbers, and this was done several years ago with the intent to be able to meet the state requirement of providing our affordable housing, or designated number that each city is given, to be able to accommodate affordable housing. This Hdo zone allows for a mixed-use, high-density residential development at 20 to 30 dwelling units per acre. The Hdo zone is intended to facilitate and encouragement the development of affordable housing, as I indicated, consistent with the requirements of the Norco General Plan housing element. At least 50% of the acreage identified with the housing development overlay zone must be used exclusively for residential uses at a density of 20 to 30 dwelling units per acre. Once this 50% of the site is achieved, the remainder can be developed with uses that It can be residential or commercial uses, which you will see is being presented as part of this project. Specific development and design standards are created on a site that has a housing development overlay. Basically, and this is done through the approval of the site plan process. And the reason for that is we don't have development standards for high-density residential development. However, that is done basically on a case-by-case basis through the approval of site plan approval. However, the uses, for example, in the underlying zone, such as the commercial uses, would be subject to the requirements of whatever the underlying zone there is. In this case, there is a CG underlying zone that would cover the development standards for the residential uses, basically the hotel and the outdoor eating area. Development standards are adopted and enforced to the conditions of approval of a specific project with a housing development overlay. So just in summary of the project that's being presented and has already been briefly touched on by the developer, the mixed-use project would consist of 320 multifamily residential rental units in 19 three-story buildings, and this is what requires approval of a site plan for the layout and all residential and commercial uses, as well as the appropriate development standards for the residential use. A hotel development, which is would be reviewed under conditional use permit 2020-05, and a variance if the hotel is ultimately part of the approval. A variance would have to be also considered for a height of over 50 feet. And the food garden and intermittent outdoor entertainment and recreation amenities, which is a conditional use permit 2020-05. So, let me straight. So with this alternative, you have your outdoor eating area in this area, parking, and residential uses on the western part in the hotel here. Go forward. As the alternative, you have the project would consist of 395 multifamily residential units, and this would be able to facilitate the provision of affordable units 10% or 40, and 23 three-story buildings, and the food garden, but no hotel. So let me switch over to just to kind of, as far as the 40 affordable units would be for the very low or moderate income levels, units would not look different. They would be required to be equally distributed in size and throughout all the residential portion of the property. So you wouldn't even know they're there. Let's see. So with this alternative, you'd have still the food, garden, parking, residential. But this is where the change will occur. No hotel, but more residential units. Okay. So as part of the approval, also that's being requested is a parcel map to be able to subdivide the property into 8 lots. So that's it. It'll just. I won't go into much on that because that's just basically to be able to divide the 19 acres into 8 lots for financial purposes. As far as the entitlements that are required, approval, you have conditional use permit 2020-02, which is for the food garden and intermittent outdoor entertainment and recreation amenities. Conditional use permit 2020-05, which is a hotel, if that's the alternative that's chosen. And if the project includes the alternative with the hotel, there is a variance that would be required to be approved for a height of in excess of 50 feet. And you have the site plan, which is for the residential portion, but would basically govern the site layout for all the uses on the project site. And as I mentioned earlier, the tentative parcel map to divide the 19 acres into 8 lots. And you do have environmental impact report that would have to be certified. And these are all the entitlements that would encompass the project, depending, of course, on the alternative that's chosen. Just really briefly, and as far as the residential portion of the project, what's being proposed, I just basically took probably some of the main development and amenities. Unit size would range from 729 to 1,284 square feet, and will be 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. All residential buildings are proposed with heights that range from 39 to 46.5 feet. That would allow for 3 stories and varying roof heights. And that's one of the development standards that the commission will have to consider as far as the for approval of the project. The proposed density is approximately 27.78 units to the acre. Will include 54 to 120 square feet of private outdoor space for each unit, averaging at approximately 75 square feet in the form of patio and balconies. Will include approximately 166,000 square feet of common outdoor space, equaling approximately 519 square feet per unit. Parking spaces will consist of garages, carports, and open stalls. The common open space area would include low water landscaping and turf areas for outdoor activities. There's a clubhouse that's also being proposed as far as the amenities, and I'll show that in one of the slides in a minute. And the overall height of the clubhouse is proposed at 50 feet 6 inches, and is intended to include a fitness center and leasing office, and it's proposed to be 2 stories with a 3rd-story outdoor deck. And this is the clubhouse, and I'll just go briefly over the. And these were seen earlier. These are the elevations for the residential buildings. If the project is, the hotel that's being proposed in the first alternative is a 120-room hotel building. It's 4 stories, totaling approximately 67,500 square feet. Has a Western architecture theme with a maximum height of 58 6 inches, and this is where the variance comes into place. 120 parking spaces, and that's just a brief description of the hotel. And there's the elevations. As far as the food garden would have a Western town theme, as you saw earlier in the aesthetic, comprised of 8 walk-up buildings, approximately 8,700 square feet with outdoor dining, covered by a shade structure approximately 5,600 square feet, landscaping, seating, etc. Building heights would vary. The tallest building with a maximum height of 28 feet 8 inches. Recreational components, including a bocce court. I don't know how to say that, but long games, etc. And the food garden would contain a total of approximately 118,800 square feet of outdoor space. The food garden would generally operate from 7 to 11 p.m. and include outdoor entertainment and recreation area to serve the community, gathering space for events such as farmers markets, food trucks, and artists, exhibits, entertainment. Events would be controlled and permitted on a case-by-case basis via approval of a special event permit, and for long-term. It could also be considered under an entertainment permit for approval by the City Council, and 167 parking spaces. And this is just a really quick some of the elevations of the food court. They also are proposed to include a Western theme. As far as landscaping, common space throughout the commercial components would include landscaping areas by the outdoor entertainment and recreation area in the northeast portion of the site. By the proposed food garden, a water tank is also proposed as part of the landscaping amenities of the center with a height of no more than 35 feet. As far as the landscaping that's being provided, a landscaping buffer of approximately 21 feet is proposed along the south property line to help shield the development from the residences on Paddock Lane. and a landscape buffer of approximately 10 feet is proposed along the west property line, and this is adjacent to the residence on that face mountain. Just a brief overview of the landscaping that's proposed for the site. And that's, well, let's go back. That's with the hotel. That's without the hotel. And that's just a highlight of the food court area with the amenities. That is just a highlight of the residential portion as far as the clubhouse, the pool that's being proposed, and some of the other amenities for the residential portion. And one thing that I did not point out, and I'll do that real quickly, right in here, that's where the clubhouse would be as far as for the residential portion. A 6-foot-high tubular steel fence with dense landscaping would be placed along the western property line between the project site and the existing residence and the Norco College STEM Center. A 6-foot high, it's what is being described as a precast concrete wall accent to look like a wood texture finish would be placed along the southern boundary of the project site to ensure privacy between the proposed multi-family units and the existing single-family residence to the south. Now, this height is being proposed at 6 feet, but it could be increased to a height determined adequate by the Planning Commission. As indicated here, the fencing can be modified in terms of material and height to provide, to enhance the privacy of the neighbors. And the site plan that was provided to the Planning Commission shows this is where the 6-foot wall, am I right? Yeah. Here, you have tubular fencing here, and in this area here. But again, at the discretion of the commission, I mean, the height of the wall along the south could increase, I will. As far as grading of the site, the grading will emulate the existing southeasterly drainage pattern. The commercial portion of the site will be elevated approximately between 5 to 8 feet above the existing sidewalk grades along Hamner Avenue and 3rd Street. The grade for the apartment buildings along the south property boarding the residents on Paddock Lane will be elevated approximately, it's more closer, probably moving closer to an average of about 4 feet above the existing grade along the private horse trail. The buildings along Norco Channel and Hamner Avenue will be approximately 6 to 9 feet higher than the existing grade on property line. The apartment buildings on 3rd Street will be approximately 5 to 10 feet higher than the grade along the existing horse trail. The project will direct runoff tributary to the residential properties on Paddock to propose connection into the Norco North Channel. And engineering staff, both from the developer and the our staff, are available should the commission have any questions on the grading. One thing that I do want to point out is, look at that. That's the grading plan. You can't really see it, but I'll move. In terms of this is a section that shows the relationship of the proposed buildings in relationship to the properties on Paddock. If you notice here you have your proposed residential building. This is the existing horse trail. The site will be approximately 4 feet, an average of approximately 4 feet higher. And you have the residential buildings. So this is kind of what you're looking at. And as you get further out, the residential properties drop approximately maybe about another 2 feet. So yeah, they will be in essence higher than the existing houses on Paddock Lane. So, and again, engineering staff on both sides will be able to address any concerns on or questions on this situation. And if you can see here, this is where there is the buffer that's being proposed, 21 feet, and that will be landscaped, proposed to be landscaped to add a buffering to the neighbors. Site access. The main circulation flow would be via the driveway on Hamner Avenue project. Secondary access would be from 3rd Street. Hamner Avenue and 3rd Street have existing curb cuts where the proposed driveways will be placed. Both access points will be designed to allow for right in and right out, and left in and left out, recommended required for approval regardless of the number of units. Pedestrian access points would be located along 3rd Street, just west of the food garden, and on both sides of the main driveway located on Hamner Avenue. The project would also include an equestrian trail along the frontage of 3rd Street, which would connect to the existing trail that runs east to west along 3rd Street. An on-site private horse show would also be provided along most of the frontage of Hamner Avenue, wrapping around the proposed park and water tower by the Hamner Avenue entrance, and would wrap around the west boundary of the proposed food garden area. As far as the EIR, the EIR was prepared to evaluate potential impacts resulting from the project's development. The following categories were found to have potential impacts and were assessed in the EIR: aesthetics, air quality, noise, etc. Impacts identified significant impacts in the following areas: biological resources, cultural and tribal cultural resources, geology and soil, and transportation. All of the above impacts can be reduced to less than significant levels after mitigation is implemented. And those mitigation measures were included in your staff report. The one that I'd like to discuss a little bit is the traffic, the mitigation measures, and these are mitigation measures that are recommended as conditions of approval and have been clarified per our engineering division. Here, the EIR analyzed the project's potential impacts to transportation and traffic. The analysis contained a description of circulation system in the project area, a discussion of potential transportation and traffic impacts resulting from the project based on the proposed uses, and any mitigation measures required to reduce the impacts. The project's roadway study included 8 existing and future intersections where the project is anticipated to contribute 50 or more peak hour trips. Study intersections included or consisted the following: the project driveway 1 on 3rd Street, the driveway on Hamner and 6th Street, Hamner Avenue and 4th Street, Hamner Avenue and 3rd Street, Hamner Avenue and the project driveway on Hamner, and 2nd Street intersection 15 southbound ramps and 2nd Street, and the I-15 northbound ramps and 2nd Street. So as far as the mitigation measures to be able to address the traffic, we have, I'll go over briefly some of the mitigation measures that, and our engineering staff on the developer side are also here to elaborate as necessary. I will go over these very briefly, some of which are already city projects. For example, for Hamner Avenue and the 6th Street intersection, the southbound approach must be restriped to provide dual left turn lanes and through lanes, and one shared through right turn lane. The traffic signal timing must be modified to optimize the cycle length and split during the AM and PM peak. And the northbound approach shall be striped to provide one left turn lane, two through lanes, and right turn lane. And this is already a city project, so the developer would be required to pay a fair share as far as if it's already a city project. For Hamner Avenue and 2nd Street, this is also already a city project. A second southbound turn lane must be added, and the southbound de facto right turn lane must be restriped. Let's see, there's the traffic signal to run the northbound and southbound left turns must be modified as lead lag, and the southbound left turn running as, with the southbound left turn running as lag, protected the eastbound and westbound turn lanes and run the eastbound and westbound left turns and lead lag, with the westbound left running as lag. Northbound and southbound left turns shall be run separately, not concurrently. The eastbound approach to provide one dedicated left turn lane, a left through turn lane and through lane, and one turn lane must be restriped. And the westbound approach to provide one dedicated turn lane, a left turn lane and through right turn lane, and one right turn lane must be restriped. So mitigations for Hamner Avenue and 3rd Street are, I'll just kind of go, are as listed there. At I-15 southbound ramps and 2nd Street intersection, it's also a city project. An eastbound right turn lane must be added. The following improvements shall be improvements to accommodate site access and ensure project traffic impacts to existing roadways and vicinity are less than significant. For the project driveway 1 and 3rd Street intersection, the following improvements are necessary to accommodate site access and future 95th percentile queues. And the mitigation measures are listed here. I'll just keep going. And these are the mitigation measures for Hamner Avenue and 3rd Street, for Hamner Avenue and the project driveway, and 3rd Street and the Hamner Avenue. For example, on 3rd Street and Hamner Avenue, you have a curb gutter and sidewalk improvements must be made to 3rd Street and Hamner Avenue project site frontages to accommodate site access consistent with city standards. So in conclusion of the project, what the commission needs to do, just very briefly, though there was a lot of information in your staff report as far as analysis of the project. There's analysis as far as architecture, there's analysis as far as a site plan, there's analysis as far as conditional use permit, there's analysis as far as a variance, and analysis as far as the site plan. So what the commission needs to do is determine the appropriate alternative. The hotel and outdoor food garden require approval of a conditional use permit as proposed meets the minimum development standards in terms of setbacks, landscaping, parking, and building, with the exception of the hotel if that's ultimately considered for approval. However, with a conditional use permit and variance, they are discretionary approvals. So those are the couple of the items that the commission needs to consider. The Planning Commission will need to determine if the proposed development standards, density, affordability aspect of the residential portion of the project meets the intent of the Hdo zone, and that includes all the development standards that were listed in your staff report with respect to the parking that's being provided for the residential portion, the building setbacks, 23 feet minimum from the street side. Side setbacks of 10 and 21 feet adjacent to the residential, parking setback of 10 feet, landscape percentages at 26% of the total property for residential uses, and et cetera, as pointed out in your staff report. And in addition to that, the Planning Commission also needs to analyze the impact to surrounding properties as far as will also need to be considered in the proposed layout of the site plan. And for all the residential and commercial uses, approval of the proposed architecture is also at the discretion of the Planning Commission. All the action by the Planning Commission is a recommendation to the City Council. In conclusion, the resolutions that are drafted with conditions, so should the Commission determine, first of all, the appropriate alternative, and should the Commission determine to approve the project. And one thing I'd like to point out is that the applicant has asked that the names on the resolutions be amended to say the applicant is FH11 or 11 LLC. So they say Frontier Homes, but they need to be abbreviated as I indicated. With that, I will conclude. I've probably spoken a lot. There's a lot of information, and I tried to be as brief as possible in the presentation. And with that, I will conclude. There's several actions that need to be taken, and they're all listed in your staff report. And with that, I will conclude and answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you,
Pat.
Wilma.
Before you begin, I just would, everyone please speak into your microphones. If you need to pull down your mask, please. We have now outside a television. We have people watching from outside, and they're really having a hard time hearing us.
Okay. Thank you, Lacey. Okay, well, we'll bring it back to our commission for questions of staff. We'll start with you, Phil, please.
I'd be happy to ask a few questions. Thank you.
I'm sure you will.
All right. So first off, I'm asking you, but maybe the applicant can answer this question. I'm looking at 3-story residential buildings of high density, and I don't see an elevator.
That's a good question. There's stairs.
Yeah.
The
So have you ever tried to load a mattress or 2 or 3 unit up to? Okay. So that was my first question. Second one. And we're talking about 320 units, 320 multifamily units.
Correct.
Right. That's okay. So I'm just getting this clear because I know what our arena numbers are. Our arena numbers are 454 across everything, and so this wouldn't satisfy it.
Not all of it, correct.
Okay. Can staff answer the question about whether or not we have sufficient water supply and sewer? 2 things. 320 units was never proposed for that lot. It was zoned as a commercial lot for automotive sales. They never would have expected to have that much. So can staff answer that question if we have the capacity, or if there's going to be a need to upgrade our entire system?
Sure. Yes, we have analyzed both our water and sewer supply and capacity, and we have ample supply for expansion for various projects throughout the city. So this project would not have a negative impact on our infrastructure.
Is that also true for the electrical infrastructure?
I couldn't answer that because that would be, I guess, Edison answering that question.
Okay. I think those are my primary. Let me just take another note here. I didn't see anything that would prevent somebody that was a non-resident from parking here. So if I was a student at the college and I didn't want to pay for parking, I didn't see anything that would prevent me from parking here and walking up the hill. Is that something that's been addressed before?
Not in the conditions of approval, but definitely there is going to be, I believe, CCNRs as far as the applicant could answer that more clearly than I can.
Okay, not yet.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, that's all I have for right now. Thanks, Pat.
Okay, thank you. Mark?
One of the reasons you do mixed-use developments like this, one of the considering factors is usually access to public transportation. We don't have, to my knowledge, public transportation here. Anytime you're doing a high-density housing project, that's always one of the issues that comes up. What's the nearest public transportation? Have there been any discussions around that issue at all?
No, not directly, as far as if there's a need for example, maybe in this case, like an additional bus route. Obviously, the closest train, as far as would be down off of Main near the freeway. That's the closest location for that. But there is an active RCTC bus route on Hamner Avenue. It's just, and they determine whether or not additional bus routes are needed based off of demand. So this would be probably something that RCTC may want to look into if it was an approved project, whether or not they want to add a bus route in front of the location.
And I was just wondering about the design. Would the design facilitate that? Has it been factored into any transportation study or anything if they wanted to put a bus stop on Hamner?
The current setbacks would more than enough accommodate a bus stop if it was required.
Okay. And what about, like, I know we've got a very nice senior center and public facilities here. Do we run shuttle services or anything like that for seniors that would now be maybe servicing this area?
Do we have Yeah, I just, there is a shuttle service for the seniors here, but I don't, that hasn't been analyzed whether it would be providing services to these units here.
Okay, because that could be an impact as well. I'll save my other questions for the developer.
Thank you. Janet?
Most of my questions are for the developer, so I'm good with Velma. Thanks.
One of my questions, I'll have a bunch for the developer too, is and this may be for the developer itself, the traffic study that we did for the egg ranch, is that included in this for the mitigation on Second and Hamner? Do we know? Because we've already approved that. There's going to be a whole bunch more traffic coming to Second and Hamner. And did they look at that? Was that involved in the same study? Has it been added to it? Is it part of it? Has it been considered?
Just to clarify your question, are you indicating whether or not the Egg Ranch already looked into that impacts for themselves regarding Second Street and
No,
Hamner?
Yeah, that already happened.
Correct.
Okay, and now we have a whole new project that's going to put a bunch more traffic out there. Did they look at that? Did this traffic study involved in that look at already what's happening, the additional traffic that'll happen from the Egg Ranch to Second and Hamner? Is that included in any of this?
I believe it is, because that project was already in process of being planned, so we asked them to consider that.
Okay, thank you. We can't, this may be developer, let me just check to see if I have any more specific for you, Alma, or the city, before I get the developing part. There now is on 3rd Street a medium that runs from Hamner up quite a ways to the college before you can turn around, correct? This driveway that's going out on 3rd Street, will there be a break in that median?
Yes, there currently is a break in that median now
Right
because
there?
of how the other shopping or commercial center on the north side of 3rd Street, that's how they exit out. So they're planning that to match that current median opening,
Okay.
so that it egress and ingress comes through the same section.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, that's all that I actually have for, yes, Alma?
Madam Chair, one of the things that I forgot to mention is that we did get a lot of letters that were provided to in opposition of the project. Those were provided to the Planning Commission from the first time the project was advertised back in February, and again under this public hearing. So I just wanted.
We have all of those.
You
We've
should have.
received all
You
of
should
those.
have all of them.
Would we like to have a break before we start with? Yeah, I would like to take a 10-minute break right now before we start with all of the questions. Thank you. All right, come back in 10 minutes, please. Please. We would like the applicant to come forward, please. We have a lot of questions. Do you have any other comments you'd like to make before we have questions for you? Okay, well, let's go ahead. Why don't you start? That way we can
Yeah,
cover it.
I think I'd just like to hear from you on the questions that I asked. There's no elevators.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. There, come up close, or pull it towards you a little.
There actually is an elevator where required in the clubhouse, but no, not in the residential, and that's just sort of an industry standard. 4 stories, you usually go elevator, but this product is basically called 3-story walk-up. However, all of the first floor units across the entire site are required to be ADA compliant. So if you did, have an issue with stairs,
Is there a distribution from the ground floor to the top floor where the bottom ones are the ones that have the greatest number of units, or no? There, you have 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom, and 1-bedroom.
Correct. Very small number, though, of 3-bedroom. I think it's only 5%.
And where would they be located in the building?
None of those are on the ground floor.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Yep. You also, I believe you asked about control of the parking and gates. There actually are gates to control the parking on the residential. The only part that would be open and need to be monitored by property management and make sure that it's functioning properly would be the parking that's for the commercial component, the food garden, but all the residential gated. And then also, I'm sorry, I did want to let you know that RTA was consulted, and there are bus stops within 500 feet in either direction, but we still, as part of the extensive EIR process, we reach out to public transportation and ask, do you want us to provide an additional bus stop in front? And by their standards, the answer was no, that it's too many stops too close together.
Mark, do you have questions?
Yeah, a couple of them. I'm curious. I would have expected with 300 plus units, if you figure an average of 3 people per unit, that's 1,000 people basically going to be living here. No grocery store. I mean, I'm kind of surprised by that. I would think that in that commercial development area or somewhere in there, there'd be some kind of an access to groceries.
Well, it's interesting that you would mention that, because if you go back to 2 years ago, and we were trying to understand, working very closely with Roger and economic development, as well as Steve King, and trying to see what the city wanted to see, what made them most happy. We did discuss that. There were site plan iterations where we looked at Trader Joe's, we looked at all kinds of things early on as the site plan was being developed. Spent a lot of time on those plans, actually. But it's an iterative process, and tough calls, and we did it in collaboration with the city staff, and that wasn't the site plan that really got anybody excited, but we did look at that. Also, I just would like to mention the 3 people per unit. This is 50% or 45% single beds, so I wouldn't think that there'd be 3 people per unit.
Just picking it on an average.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
The part that's going to be managed, the community portion of it, I saw in here where it said that there were hours, basically, of hours of operation, but what, I guess, how is it going to be monitored and controlled in the evening after closing? Because there's not a physical way to close it off, right? That area?
No, there will be a way to physically close it off. Not the parking lot, but the actual food garden will be gated and shut, and then of course we'll have site security. Just as a private property owner, we would of course want that.
Okay. And the lighting in that area, will it be on 24 hours? Will it go dark when it's closed? I mean,
Light would go down. I don't believe it would go completely dark. Of course, we'll have to do, it's a little early for that. Something that I'm sure is going to be required as we move into final engineering would be a photometric study, which would do that exactly and show how it's going to be lit and all that. So we haven't gotten far enough along to answer that in too technical of a way, but.
Okay. There's going to be I mean, they're not owners, obviously. This is all rental property, right? So, but is there going to be like a tenant board of directors or something? How are the tenants going to have a voice, I guess, in what goes on in this property? Or are the tenants going to have a voice in what goes on in this property?
So we'll hire a specialized property management company to maintain close relations with guests. I mean, that's what they specialize in. That's why we don't do it ourselves. You hire a company that specializes in that because it's a very people-to-people relations. There'll be activities scheduled. They want to get the community engaged. There'll be events. I don't know if you saw, but the third-story roof deck is designed specifically so that people can hold events and birthday parties, and there'll be a company that manages that specifically.
Will there be a relationship between the company that manages, or is the question, what would be the relationship between the company that manages the residential area and the company that manages the commercial area?
Other than that they'll both work for us as the property owner? None, because they're so different.
Right.
We'll hire a specialized property manager for both.
Okay. I guess what I'm thinking about is maybe concerns that get raised on the side of the residential side relating to the commercial side, and maybe vice versa.
Sure, and those will have to be worked out by us as the property owner as issues arise.
Okay.
Janet?
Yeah, on the commercial site here, kind of help me understand. So I'm trying to visualize in my head. This is a venue for parties, weddings, gatherings that anyone could rent the space.
Yes.
And then you've got these outbuildings here. Now, are these all enclosed buildings? I mean, as far as commercial, I guess, is there like any kind of retail or specific type of restaurateurs, or is it just
we don't
vendors?
At this time, we don't envision any retail. We envision each one of those. They're actually very small, and there's, other than the saloon, nobody from the public goes in. They're only about 700, 850 square feet. They're for basically, imagine a food truck that is stationary, basically. Okay. So each one would be a unique vendor, hopefully American themed food, and each one would be serving food through a pass-through window.
So food park, outdoor entertainment, basically a gathering for the public to
Yes.
use, to utilize, and ride their horses and gather, which is really unique because we really don't have anything like that in Norco, is for a community gathering. Makes sense.
There's not really too many of these even in Southern California, but definitely not one like this.
Right. Now, your application for the track map is to divide into 8 lots or 8 parcels, correct?
Yeah, it's a parcel map for financial
Parcel map,
purposes.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. So it's just in the development process?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
So I guess my thing is, in the long-term ownership of this, your plan is to own it 100% at all times, not just like at one point into the future, take the food park and then sell that off at any one point in time.
correct. Our intention is to own the entire property.
Okay, I just wanted to, all right, thank you.
I guess I don't quite understand the affordable unit part. You have to not have the hotel to have affordable units within your units?
Well, and this is a good point. And one thing I did forget to mention is when you said the 320 units, if you choose to do the alternative, it's actually 395, which is,
Correct.
I mean, a big chunk. I forget what the number is, 400 and what's your housing element?
452 or something
452.
like
So,
that, yes.
395 is it's a pretty good chunk of your entire cycle. But yeah, so when you there was so much opposition to the hotel, simultaneous with that feedback was, this doesn't help us with our arena. What about our affordable component? And so as we got asked to look into that, it's not something that we typically do. We're not an affordable housing developer. We don't know the complicated federal process. We don't do Section 8. This isn't Section 8. We don't know anything about Section 8. I think that was a big fear when you use the word affordable, is that you're applying for federal money and it's all dictated by federal programs. That is not what we're doing here. This is simply a collaborative effort with the city to help the city address what the state's forcing us to do here. So these units a covenant would be recorded against them so that they would be affordable for 55 years. We can only collect rents at the arena levels, the 4 arena levels. But it's totally privately run. This doesn't involve the government or anything else. We don't get any special tax credits for it, which typically that's the way, and again, I'm not an expert in this because we don't do it, but that's typically the way, affordable housing is built. There's tax credits, there's all kinds of requirements. They get deals and discounts and all kinds of stuff. We're not doing that here. This is just simply a collaborative effort to address RENA. And so to do that, to build a unit at full cost and then never rent it out for what it's worth, and then spread the time value of money over 55 years, you basically need another unit to offset the cost of that one to make it all financially pencil. And so by getting rid of the hotel and adding 75 units overall, that's how you get, and we didn't actually achieve, just because of engineering challenges, the 1-to-1 ratio that we were looking for. So it is a little hit to the project, actually. The alternative is ever so slightly less financially viable than the hotel version.
Basically, you're trading the hotel
for the units, but half of those go to address the city's arena.
You're really not willing to do that with having the hotel and doing that?
No, you can't. That was.
I mean, you can, but, but you wouldn't.
We can't. Yeah, it doesn't pencil.
Okay, all right. That was. And then the management of the property. Is there an on-site manager? Will they live there, or is it just?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, they will live there.
They'll be available 24 hours.
Correct.
Okay, all right. Did you have another question, Mark? Oh, okay, sorry. Let me see if there's anything more, or other ones will pop up. Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
So what you described was really basically rent control, right? Is that what you're saying when you talk about affordable units?
Control.
Or how do you define affordable?
So the state defines it for us.
You're using the state definition?
Correct.
Okay. So you're falling into the state
and then we will have
categories.
Correct. And then the way that will be executed is I think rent control is based by ordinance. This would actually be by a collaborative, an agreement. We do a development agreement that would go before city council, and that part of the requirement would be that we record a covenant against 10% of the units, and then every year we'd have to prove that we're not collecting market rate rents on those.
So you're going to have designated units, or is it going to float over time?
We have full control over them. There will be designated units that have the covenant on them.
Right.
Yes, if that's what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And will that be a mixture of ADA accessible units? How does that percentage break out?
2 and 3? Yeah.
Yeah, we can. Really, we're working collaboratively with the city, so it's whatever they want in the development agreement. We're going to try to accommodate that.
Okay, who has responsibility for overseeing that? Alma, do we know?
I can speak to that. We have not developed this program in the city before. Certainly that will be...
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that will be part of our housing program. And it will probably be administered through the finance department and city manager's office.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now, Lacey, do you want me to do the next part? Do you want me to read this yet, or are you doing your thing first?
No, I'll
Okay,
do
let me open the public hearing. There we go, official. Okay, Lacey's going to do something first.
Paul Olds.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk this evening. Real briefly, I live directly adjacent to the proposed development on Paddock Lane. Number one, I moved there because of the privacy and the environment, and this proposed development is going to be a huge negative on my environment and my property and my property value. I have a property that I can work in the back of the property, have all of my equipment, my tools, my vehicles unlocked, a large amount of commercial equipment, and I don't have to worry about somebody walking away with it if I go inside the house to have dinner and I'm working out there till midnight. I don't have that issue currently. With this, we would have that issue. Have a loss of privacy. The side elevations, there's already a 4+ foot elevation change in grade, plus 40+ feet above that will not be masked by trees. There's a walkway, proposed walkway along the south side of the property that is elevated above the horse trail and is elevated above the 6-foot fence or wall or whatever they're proposing, that somebody that is walking on the development can look right into my backyard, right into my back door. Okay? If there was any of you people here that were going to have a 3-story development directly adjacent to your property, 20 feet off of your property line, I believe this would be a dead issue. Okay? I understand the state mandate. The state mandate is under contest with a lot of different cities are contesting the mandate. I don't believe it's going to be upheld in the courts. The overlay is just the wrong situation for that location. All the original concerns that everybody had about the college expansion are the same issues with this. If we were concerned about the traffic for the number of students that attend the college, the parking, the traffic, the congestion, the entry and exit issues that already exist are just going to be made worse by this, and you're going to have over 1,000 residents on a 24-hour basis entering and exiting that property. Okay, so it's just the wrong situation for that location, and I'm totally against it. The developer reached out to me many times. I've had many meetings with them, and I appreciate their efforts, but I cannot support this at all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Diane Millard.
Hello, everyone.
Pull it, mic towards you a little bit. Just pull it toward. There you go.
Hello, everyone. I've been a resident of Norco for the last 24 years, and I'm afraid that the density in this particular area will impact not only the residents that are nearby, like the prior person that just spoke, but I'm also concerned about all the students and everything. It's just a lot of people in a small area. So I really would like to say that I'm totally against this project. I think that it is ill-conceived, and I hope that something else might come up. I'm not objecting to anything that is in this area, but I just feel that this is such a big project in a small area. 19 acres is not that big for what we're talking about. So that is my one objection, and that's primarily why I'm here. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff Shue.
Good evening, members of the Commission. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you guys. I had the opportunity to hear this presentation when they presented in front of EDAC a couple of months ago, and I just want to come in support of it in the economic sense, in that when it was presented to us, it was really presented as an economic boom for the city, not just in terms of the tax collection, but in terms of the opportunity for kind of the business catalyst for the different business that would be going into it. I know that just from my past experience with architecture that we develop stuff like Steelcraft in Long Beach, and then there's stuff like the packing house in Anaheim. That type of environment that they're talking about here would be conducive to kind of inviting more of the collaborative business environment in there. So I do want to promote that, but I do want to stand in front of you and raise the concern that I share with a lot of these people outside in the hallway as well as in the room here of the traffic that's going to be generated by the project. I hope that you guys will question the project more thoroughly in that regard to a point where you're satisfied with the answer, because I do think that there's going to be a lot of residents that's going to be occupying the space, as well as the commercial aspect of it. And I just want to make sure that whatever we do put in there is accommodating that. One of the things that I don't think has been highlighted enough here, which was in our EDAC meeting, was that Frontier owns this project. They own the property. This is no longer speculation. So the people who are kind of saying, let's put something else there, or maybe this is not the project for it, let's put something else in there. The fact of the matter is they own this project. If they can't build on it, they're going to sell it to someone else, because they're not going to hold on to it and just keep paying the fee, paying the money on it. The reality is, with a high density overlay for the housing unit, it's going to be the most economical type of construction that's going in there. And if we don't partner up with a collaborative client, I guess, or a developer that's going into here, my fear is that we're going to end up with a developer that's much more cutthroat, who are going to take the city to court and simply put in the cheapest and the most money-making scheme that they could put in there, which is essentially going to end up being a whole lot of apartment in there. And it's not going to have, they're not going to pay attention to the theming to fall in line with our city. They're not going to try to accommodate a lot of what we've asked for in terms of listening to removing the hotel and providing some of the amenities with the trail and stuff like that. Anyway, I hope you guys do follow through with a lot of the questions and get them answered to your satisfaction.
Thank you.
Kelly O'Brien. Evan? Right? Like where? Shane Thompson?
City Council, thank you for the time to hear me today. I don't think this fits with Norco. It'll fundamentally change our city in ways that are happening in other parts of the city, something we don't need. We've already got low development housing. We've got the big prison over on 5th Street. kind of handles that. It just doesn't fit the town, doesn't fit the culture. I think they need to relook at the area and try to figure out something that fits with the culture of Norco instead of forcing it upon us. That's all I've got to say. I'll give the time back. Thank you guys very much. Have a nice night.
Thank you.
Mike Thompson.
Good evening, Commission. For you new members, my name is Mike Thompson, and I was the sole no vote from the Streets and Trails Commission is the traffic and I wasn't happy with some of the horse trail. But I'm here tonight as a citizen, live a block over, been in town for 35 years, and my concern is this residential. For gosh sakes, no more hotels, please. And this development isn't fair to the residents that live on Paddock and Mountain. I mean, 3 stories looking into your backyard. And when you folks bought your big lots, and you had any idea that if it was, vacant back there, you were going to get anything different than a half-acre, development, and you're going to have 3 stories looking in your yard, you wouldn't have bought your places. I know I wouldn't have. But it's just not fair to the folks that live there. There's only a 6-foot wall proposed on the horse trail that backs up to the Paddock residence. And that's just, like the grocery outlet. They got 12-foot wall. The 6 foot is just way too short. You're gonna have 3 stories. You got people in there with swimming pools. You're gonna have people staring at their teenage daughters when they're playing in their pools. 6-foot wall is not gonna cut it. See, in the past, when there have been high-density residential lots approved by you folks and have made it all the way through, there's some over, by the riverbed and some over there by 4th Street. There was never 2 stories, 3 stories. It was all residential high-density lots. Want to keep this practice going and hope you folks ain't the first ones to allow multi-story apartments. When the city overlay code, 1864, continually stresses affordable, not market value, and that is not a requirement, to have affordable. This project does nothing for the state's requirements for a 10% for affordable housing. It just doesn't do anything for that amount of property. In the traffic studies in our commission, we were told the traffic study was done in January of 2020. January, winter break for the college kids. And half the college kids weren't even there. And then another thing I heard is that they're talking about raising the grade. Look what happened at the new Stater Brothers. It got missed that they were raising the grade. Those poor Corona residents that back up to the back of that property, they got nothing blocking them off until we went in there and put some shade stuff up and everything to help that. But that's raising the grade, 3 stories, backing up to residents is wrong. So I hope you deny this part of the project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Julia Newcomb. If I'm saying that correctly.
Hi, I'm Julia Newcomb, and thank you.
Pull it a little closer. There you go, and pull it towards you. There you go. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to my issues. I've been in Norco for about 6 years now, and I've been around the area for a long time, and I've moved here because of the horses and the rural areas of Norco, and I'm really concerned about the traffic along 3rd and Hamner, because we do ride our horses along there a lot, and there is a lot of traffic when school is in session, and I just can't imagine having that much more traffic on that corner. And I'm very concerned about also there's not as much parking for that many units on that piece of property. Because if you're figuring if it's lower income, it's also apartments, there's going to be multiple number of residents in one home. It's not usually just a single family home. So it's like, and there's also going to be traffic going in and out a lot. People don't usually stay in an apartment for long periods of time. So therefore, there's going to be also more moving trucks and larger vehicles trying to go in and out of the apartments, I would assume. So that, I didn't see any accommodations for, moving trucks and stuff during the presentation. So I'm kind of concerned about that also. So I'm really opposed to, I rode along the trails back there with my horse, and yes, another thing is there's going to be a lot of dust from all the horses in the pastures back there that they don't realize that it's going to actually make a mess for the residents in the apartments also. So if that's the case, it just doesn't fit into our community. So anyway, thank you for listening to me and my concerns.
Thank you.
Dean.
Thank you all. I've lived in Norco for 32 years now, raised 4 kids. I live behind the college in the homes there. And the college did a study, I want to say 2 to 3 years ago, trying to figure out ways to eliminate the traffic issue, especially when the college was in session. And after that, of course, nothing's been done because they couldn't find an alternative way to resolve the traffic issues. So then when I heard about this project going through, I was to myself going, we already have a traffic issue with the school. And now we're going to put a 19-acre, 395-unit complex there, which is going to add another 1,000 people. So my concern being in the homes behind there is that once they realize if it does go through and get built and it's not accommodated with 2nd Street, 6th Street, Hamner, 3rd, they're going to open up Belgian and Western. And then we're going to turn into a freeway back there. And I didn't move in here 30-some years ago. I like the rural environment, same thing everybody else is here for. So that's my concern. I know everybody's already weighed against it, but yeah, I'm opposed to the project. That's it. Thank you. One other thing real quick.
Quick.
When they said that they talked to all the residents, sounds to me like they only dealt with the people that lived on Paddock Lane and Mountain. We live right behind there. Nobody ever came to our neighborhood. I didn't hear anything about it. I mean, I just never heard anything about it. But when the college did it, everybody was involved. We all came down. They had multiple studies, and we all had the opportunity to voice our opinion. Nobody ever told me. If it wasn't for our local realtor who lives in our neighborhood, she passed out flyers to all of us and let us know about this meeting today. So I just want to bring that up.
Thank you.
Russell Newcomb?
First, I'd like to thank the Commission for postponing it so that we could do this live instead of over Zoom. So I also weigh in that it seems like there will be a very major parking impact. I'm sorry, a traffic impact, even though the ERI says there's no significant traffic impact. You already heard from my wife. And we ride regularly along there, probably 2-3 times a week for the last 6 years, and the college students are not the most careful drivers, and that may not be included in the computer models they're using to find out what the impact is. So trying to get some safety there is very important. So before we moved to Norco, we were up in Northern California, and we were in a fairly rural area, sort of about where Norco is now, and we spent 20 years there. And we went into a development that was fully built. And when we were there, over the years, we found that as time went on, people started parking on the street. Now the streets are lined end to end with cars. Because what people do, so the number of parking spots per unit may be appropriate for when it's new here, but as things get more expensive, the kids come back home, or you have more than one family in a unit, and the parking requirement goes up a bunch. So I think that we should not give them the variances they're asking for the parking per unit, and if anything, increase it. Because unless something like that's done 5 years from now, 10 years from now, people are going to be cutting across Hamner in order to park into some commercial area across the street and that type of stuff. And there's one last thing I'd like for clarification. I went through the agenda packet, which is a bit of a read. And it sounded like, even though we have an allocation, the RINA is supposed to be 454 units, but it sounds, I may have read it wrong, but it sounds like there's only like 40 units of that 454 would be satisfied by this. So in the comments, if the applicants can address that concern as far as how much is towards that allocation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Joy Aaliyah Owella. Sorry if I messed it up.
Good evening, I'm Joy Olea. I'm actually the realtor that passed out the flyer to all the residents in our neighborhood. And I can tell you within an hour of me passing these out on Monday morning, I had tons of phone calls and texts thanking me because no one knew this was happening. We've all been to the meeting, like Dean had said, with the Navy and the school, trying to address the traffic that comes in our neighborhood already because of the college. The kids that park on Belgian, one, either they don't want to pay for their permit, or two, they're just finding the easiest route because of the traffic on Hamner. It's much easier to park on Belgian and then just walk straight into the college through the emergency entrance. At this point, I feel like it's awesome that they talked to the persons on Paddock, but none of us were notified at all. I think in going forward, I'm not opposed to a project like this, but I feel like this particular location, I am also in a unique situation where I have a child at the Norco campus as well as Norco High, and I've had to fight the traffic between the two at the same time in the morning. Adding another 1,000, 3,000, however many people coming and going during the day to that area is going to be a nightmare. It's already a nightmare when school's normally in session. We all kind of are forgetting what it's actually like when the kids are in session. But I don't forget. I remember what it was like. There's too many already, and the school's already overpopulated, and the kids are just parking and finding the easiest route is what they're doing. So if this project goes through at this particular location, I just feel like it's going to be a major problem, and we're going to have even more issues in our neighborhood. And I would just urge you to take that into consideration, as well as for the Paddock residences, as well as the Sycamore Ranch and Pepperwood residents as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kevin Sutherland.
Good evening, Planning Commission. I appreciate time you're allowing me to speak. And I want to apologize in advance because I'm likely to get a little emotional about this, because it has become very apparent to me that the people seated beside me and the developer don't give a darn about me and my family. My property backs up to this. I get a 6-foot wrought iron fence. I didn't buy that property just to have a place to live with a little bit of dirt in the backyard. I built it to be a dream home for me and my family once I retire. I just retired. As a fire marshal in Orange County after 35 years of service with municipal government. What I do know, people that live in apartments pay the least in taxes and demand the most in services. Don't forget to ask the fire chief about the elevators. I wouldn't allow it. 3 stories without an elevator, how do you get a gurney up and down? So, as you could see, I'm quite emotional about it. They've killed my dream, because I sent my daughter to college to be in an equine science major and focused in genetic engineering for breeding. My plan was to breed and train horses in that little arena that's got a little separation of a 6-foot wrought iron fence. There's not many properties like mine. I lived on paddock before I lived in the house I'm in now on mountain. I don't have lots of options. So I've already given up because I've lived here my whole life. My wife has too. We didn't want a freeway. We got Interstate 15. Didn't want a golf course, got one. Okay, you know, we wanted a park with anything but soccer fields. So we don't get what we want as taxpayers in this city. So I've already given up. I've got my house for sale. My hope is that I can get it sold before they can get break ground on their construction. And I'm really disappointed in the fact that I was never notified by these folks here or the developer. My property backs up to it. So if it wasn't for the folks out there that live on Paddock Lane that helped educate us on this project, we wouldn't know. I wouldn't be standing here, you know, sharing my feelings with you. So fortunately, they did share. So I encourage you to think about this, not just think about Paul and him standing in his underwear and people looking through the window. Think about yourselves standing in your underwear in your house, having people looking in. You didn't plan for that when you spent your entire savings on building a home for yourselves. Neither did we. Thanks.
Thank you.
Nancy Van Sickle. Nancy Van Sickle. Marilee, is that Menu? Manu?
Yes, we moved here more than 19 years ago because there were no apartments. Apartments are a big problem. A lot of people have talked about the cars. Well, you take 395 units and think about it. I have a car. My husband has a car. My daughter has a car. My son, my other 2 children, especially if they're teenagers. So there you are with 6 cars. How many cars are allowed in this place? You take the 395 just by the husband and wife, that's 790 cars. You add 1 child, just 1 child, that's 1,185. Visitors, if everybody had 1 visitor, that's another 395, so you've got 1,580. They're talking about birthday parties. The last birthday party at my daughter's in Garden Grove, there were 9 cars because we drove from all areas to get there. And then gatherings, they talk about gatherings. How many cars will that bring? We already have college students parking in the areas up above the college because they don't want to pay for their parking fees. What are we going to do with all these cars? Every one of these type units that my daughter lived in, when they were building the units, there were lots of parking places to visit. Then, as they built it up, all those parking places got filled up with cars for the residents. Then they built the little coffee shops. All of those spaces were gone. Down at the beach where she lived, if you can't visit, there's no place to park. So they're parking on the streets. You take around 1,900 cars. How many are allowed for this thing? Those 1,900 cars are going to be in the parking of the businesses across the street, All the residences up above the college, any place they can park, that's where they'll be. But it's not just parking. You take that same amount, 1,975, plus however many people they can cram in there, each one of those people becomes a resident of Norco. Then they can vote. They can vote out our Norco lifestyle. It will no longer be half-acre horse property. It will be divided. Then it'll be a quarter of an acre, then an eighth of an acre. I think that our state mandate can be either fought or met in another way. This is not the Norco that I moved into. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bonnie Slager.
Good evening. Hear me? First of all, I want to say that Norco Horsemen's Association does not support this project, since our whole reason is to support the rural lifestyle, and this is the antithesis of the rural lifestyle. So we do not support it. I will say that Frontier has been accessible. They met with us on Zoom, and they allowed our comments. I look at the results now, and I don't think they listened to our comments. We suggested things to enhance the rural lifestyle, such as maybe having a community garden and some of these things. I don't see any of those things incorporated. I'm sad about that. I think that would help. I'm concerned that building almost 400 units here, when our arena numbers are for 454 units over 8 years, if we do 400 units now, when the next arena study comes up, oh, you guys did so well, now you get another 400 units, where if we only did a few of them, we'd still have 400 units, but we only did 20 instead of 400. And so I'm not quite sure how that works. Since the numbers are for high density of 20 per unit, 20 per acre, 20 units per acre, and it's about 1,900 acres, and only half of it has to be, it looks like they're only required to have 190 units. And that would be 20 units per acre on half the acreage, and they're at 27, almost 28 units per acre, much higher density. Even if you went to the 30 units per acre, that would be 285 units on half of it. So I think they could cut down the density and be within the unreasonable state mandates. Parking and traffic, a lot of other people have said it. I won't repeat that. I just hope that you will really consider the number of units. I realize there's a profitability factor there, but this just doesn't fit into our community as it is. And it's sad to see this even happening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kim Rash.
Evening. I live on Paddock Lane. This project will back up to my house. I was never contacted by anybody. I've lived here for 30 years, and I can't imagine having somebody looking at my backyard from a tall building looking into my privacy. I don't think any of you would want that. I know no one in here wants it. It's just unfathomable, truthfully. They want to raise that ground level for 4 more feet, a 6-foot wall. What is that going to do? Is it going to keep people from looking in my property when they're 40 feet in the air? I don't think so. I don't think so. Not only that, it just says we're invading your space without being asked if you can invade my space. That's not fair. I don't want my space invaded. That's the reason I lived here. That's the reason I raised my 4 boys here. Because I wanted them to have space and a place to grow up and not have to deal with this kind of invasion. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Robert Minow? Robert Manow? Bill Naylor? I'm sorry? Sorry, Bill.
That's all right.
I think my wife has said just about everything that I would say, but it's been my experience when you cram that many people together, the crime rate goes up. And that's something we definitely don't need. I agree with most of the things that everyone else has said here. Traffic is a huge issue. As you know, driving up and down Hamner during school hours, you can wait at that light a long time. I'll yield my time to somebody else.
Thank you.
Bill Naylor?
Thank you, Commissioners. Pretty much what I was going to say has been said by most of the people that have already spoken this evening. A couple of things, though, I'd like to point out, just as my observation. First of all, I'm kind of got a mixed feeling about this. There are some good points to some of the project that is being presented tonight, but I moved to Norco for the rural atmosphere, not the downtown Los Angeles or downtown Orange County. My concerns on this project are traffic. And I know that that's being addressed in different ways. One point specifically that I'd like to point out is that since as a matter of fact, I ride that trail occasionally, and I would like to make sure that they do have adequate time to cross Hamner for the horses. You know, on the crosswalk part, because it really can create a problem if you kind of cut that short. And I know it's just going to be a real nightmare. A couple of other things. I'd like to see the density, if this does get passed at all, to the least possible, because the more people, and again was mentioned earlier, the more people that come in to vote, and if they're an apartment person, they're not, what can I call it? They're not rural. They're not used to the types of things we want, and they're going to change community when you're adding another 500 to 700 extra votes in town. So that's something just to consider. I know we can't completely control it, but that's a concern that I have. Bonnie mentioned about the community garden. That was one of the things that I had suggested, and it would be nice for them to have added into there somewhere. And then the wall, or let's see, along the horse trail, I don't think a 6-foot-high fence along their wall would be adequate. I think the residents are right. They don't need to have somebody looking right in their backyard, especially since they're going to be elevated on that side. Those are the things that I kind of want. Like I say, I like the commercial part of their program, and I would rather see them have a hotel than all the apartment buildings in there. So those are just some of the thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Connie? Is it Muckenthaler? Did I say it right?
Yep.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Woohoo.
Connie Muckenthaler, also a resident of Paddock Lane. I moved to Norco nearly 20 years ago so that I could have my horse in my backyard. Like everybody, I'm just blown away by the lack of comprehension of the traffic impact that this project will add, because already those of us on Paddock and Mountain feel like the stepchildren of the city. When Palomino Business Park is fully developed out, I don't think anyone comprehends the level of traffic that is going to add to this city. Right now, we get 1 or 2 semis coming down 2nd Street going into the Egg Ranch, and it blocks traffic. Let's add a couple hundred of those a day coming in 2nd Street off of Hidden Valley. It's going to be incomprehensible. That's 1 million square feet of development. And now we're going to add this onto the other side. It's like our neighborhood has become a forgotten area. It is a beautiful, stable neighborhood. How many of you have actually been on Paddock Lane? All of our homes are kept up. Norco is kind of famous for its rather eclectic homes. But this is a beautiful neighborhood where everything is kept up. We have underground utilities. It's one of the reasons I bought where I did. And the main reason I bought in Norco in the first place was to have my horse in my backyard. And people haven't really talked about that part of it. I'm terrified to have my horse in my backyard. I can't figure out, there's, either they're going to build a block wall behind my house, because I don't want people from apartments who aren't animal keeping people coming down that trail and touching my horse, feeding my horse God knows what. I've had that happen in the past, where a horse colicked because somebody who didn't know any better was feeding him trash. It's terrifying to me, and if I have to move my horse, I'm going to move myself as well. But it's the traffic is clearly a huge issue. The other thing is the proposed hours of operation of the food court are unacceptable to me. To say that it's going to go 7 to 11. We have residents in our neighborhood who are in public safety. We have a lot of them, actually. People who work shift work. And you're going to have things going till 11 o'clock. And I don't think anything should go past 10 o'clock any night of the week, including the weekend. We need also to have some security going along with this. I was very concerned about how I say this without sounding racist or something else that everybody gets accused of in this day and age. But, apartment people aren't going to necessarily be stable citizens of Norco. Somebody else talked about the transient nature. We need a 24-hour security within that complex as well, to ensure the safety of the residents that are living there and those of us living near there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Patrick Mitchell.
My name's Patrick Mitchell, and I moved to Norco about 10 years ago because I really like the saying on that sign there, city living in a rural atmosphere. I worked the land. I wanted to live at a place where I could grow food, I could keep animals, and I think that's probably why most of the people in Norco moved here. I appreciate Frontier's efforts to reach out to people, to try to incorporate some of the things they heard into this, but I do feel that today the plan as proposed is still way out of scale. There's way too many units there. I think, like you've heard over and over again tonight, the people on Paddock bought their homes because they wanted rural living. You put a 3-story building at the back of their home and that rural life is gone. I think you need to move any multi-story buildings away from existing residences. I also prefer a hotel to apartments, but I think that hotel needs to be a destination hotel that brings people to Norco who want to come and visit for the lifestyle that we live, not because they're too tired to keep driving and they're getting off the freeway. I think I've heard some comments about things like farm to table and farmers markets and all of that, and I just really need to remind everybody that if you don't have any farms, you don't get farm to table. You don't get a farmer's market. And if we keep developing the way that we are today, you don't have farms. You don't get that kind of lifestyle. So I would ask you as the Planning Commission, the sort of first line of defense to protect our rural atmosphere, that encourage Frontier to go back and do another revision of this plan, because I don't think it's quite to the standards that Norco deserves. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica Yule. Did I say that right?
Good evening. I'm an 18-year resident of Norco. I actually am in the neighborhood behind on Belgian. So my concerns are also what a lot of people have already mentioned. We know we have a traffic problem there already. And I'm just, the modifications that they're talking about making on Hamner and 3rd don't seem like it will be enough to accomplish handling all this volume of cars. So I think it's only a matter of time before they would be looking up at opening up some more streets, and so then we know it would probably come our direction, so we want to obviously get ahead of that. And then I also would say too, I want to know, like, for the apartments and the number of residents that it would have, our schools even have the capacity to handle the children that might come with that too? So that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have no more speaker cards, so now I will go to the emails that I have received since the meeting has started. This is an email from Mike Williams. Good evening, Planning Commission. As a resident and involved in the city government as a commissioner of Stuck, I'm concerned about the streets and trails of this project. Throughout the EIR, it was stated that no mitigating factors existed as it pertains to this project. However, there is a concern about the ownership of 3rd Street and its use for the project. According to the Riverside Community College District's letter of May 3rd, 2021, page 193 of your packet, the street belongs to them, and they are concerned about the sharing of an already congested and heavily used primary ingress into the college and potential liability concerns. There is also a concern about the traffic on Hamner between 2nd and 6th if this project is approved. Streets, Trails, and Utilities Commission offered several possible remedies, only to be told they weren't needed. Both Sigrid and I have mentioned many times that if this project proceeds, the backyard trail behind the project leading to Mountain Avenue and Paddock Lane needs to be connected and open to the public. Please consider the circulation of our horse trail into this project. This will allow residents of the area to gain access to the amenities through the most direct route. Closing the backyard trail, building a concrete wall to separate the project from the residents to the south can in fact bring the homeless, squatters, and others to the area. This will become their alleyway and will bring more problems such as hazardous human waste, homeless compounds, and potential crime to the homes whose property lines share that of the back trail. Thank you for your time, Mike Williams. And this is from Dr. Williams, Sigrid Williams. Good evening. Unfortunately, I'm unable to attend tonight's meeting. Please read the attached, there is no attached letter. During my comments, oh, here it is. Greetings, everyone. I feel the need to share my thoughts on the Norco Valley project beyond the 5-page letter I submitted back in September of last year. I had concerns then, and more importantly now. What alarms me is how each of the concerns in my letter and other residents' letters were disregarded. Quite frankly, it is appalling to hear that the city employees and Frontier Enterprises would claim there are no mitigating circumstances even in their rebuttal to our concerns, including the use of 3rd Street, which is owned by the college. Please take time to read our original letters and the city's responses, including RCCD's response to 3rd Street. I have some serious reservations about this project. Number one, there is a concern that the complex with 320 or 395 apartments will not have a park for children to play, a playground. This was dismissed and not needed when, in fact, if children will live in this high-density housing complex, it should provide amenities to all residents, not just cater to the adults, with a clubhouse, fitness center, and outdoor pool and spa described in Frontier's proposal. The Quimby Act the Quimby Act is clear about the neighborhood and community park acreage per 1,000 members of the population. This project, with its apartments, will exceed this number. The Quimby Act also states proposed park and recreation facilities. While the city may prefer payments of fees in lieu of, I would bet the residents would prefer a playground for their children. Number 2, we do not need a hotel within 25 feet of Hamner Avenue to exceed 5 stories. Number 3, while high-density housing is a legal requirement, approving a 320 multifamily apartment complex and hotel or a 395 multifamily complex is overreaching for the area. If the hotel is not approved, some sort on convenience store, Walgreens, Rite Aid, or CVS should take its place for the steady economic contribution to this city. Walkability to services should be taken into consideration. This becomes a win-win. 4, if Frontier truly wants to be a part of our community, there is no need to subdivide the 19 acres into 8 lots. Their reasoning may be for their financial loan purposes, but beware. This leaves it open for them to sell certain lots once they are built, especially ones that may not bring the rate of return Frontier is looking to acquire. Number 5, as stated earlier, there's a lot of concerns that I mentioned along with other residents, and they were either ignored or dismissively rejected. Frontier has reached out to me twice wanting to have a private conversation in hopes of gaining my support. I can only assume they have done this with others as well. I can only hope it was done in an ethical manner and no financial incentives being offered. I believe this. This is from Elizabeth Ellis. Good evening. I just wanted to give you my opinion on what I would like to see for the city of Norco. I've lived here for 34 years. My children were always able to ride their bikes and horses up and down the street, and I never had to worry about them. Unfortunately, Norco is becoming more and more like Orange County, with more homeless people, transients harassing us in parking lots and hotels everywhere. I really don't think that Norco needs any more hotels. The ones that we have already attract crime. We have prostitution stings, child pornography stings, drug busts, and burglaries, to name a few hotel-related crimes. If we are going to have a low-income housing, why don't we do low-income housing for seniors and vets? I realize that it's expensive to live in Norco, but that's not always a bad thing. We need to keep our large lots and our animal keeping lifestyle. We really need to be a Horsetown, USA again. I would like to see a development that has maybe some leather shops, some gift stores, coffee shops, a steakhouse, Western-themed crafts, similar to the city of Oatman in Arizona or downtown Temecula. An open-air farmers market with craft booths, live music would give people a place to come and relax and spend their money. Let's make Norco a destination. Let's build up riding stables, dude ranches, rodeos, county fairs, and things that draw folks from other cities to our city to come spend their money while they visit. Anaheim has nothing until Disneyland moved in, and now it's a destination. We have the opportunity to make Norco a destination for rodeos, country concerts, chili cook-offs, county fairs. Please, let's not waste this unique opportunity that we have by going for the big fast money. Low-income housing and warehouse may bring in money fast. However, that might not always be in the best thing sometimes. Slow and steady wins the race. We don't have to increase the number of residents to increase the revenue. Thank you for taking your time to read my opinion. Angela Esperanza. Hello, good evening. Hello, good evening, members of the commission. It's Angel Esperanza. I'd like to submit a public timer for the Norco Valley Square, and I'm a member of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters. We believe that you will be impacted by the environmental impact of this project. The city should require the product to be built utilizing a local and skilled trained workforce. Local hire and skilled trained workforce requirements reduce construction-related environmental impacts while benefiting the local economy. In a recent report, 2020, titled Putting California on the High Road, a Jobs and Climate Action for 2030, the California Workforce Development Board concluded that the investments in growing diversity and upscaling California workforce can positively affect returns on climate mitigation efforts to Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters comments on final environmental impact reports submitted in March of this year are expectedly missing from today's meeting materials, and the Planning Commission should not trying to take any action on this project until it record corrected and its decision can be informed by our comments. The city, I'm not sure what the word is, the city something environmental impact report for the project is fundamentally flawed, inadequate, failing to disclose, analyze, and mitigate the project's significant transportation, land use, and energy impacts. The environmental impact report must be updated. Then we circulated today to assure that the public is fully informed of the project's significant environmental impact and provide the opportunity to provide comments on the updated document. Thank you for your time. This is from Keith Shook. I oppose the development of the 320 and the 395 multifamily residential units. The multifamily residential units will generate approximately 800 to 900 cars addition load on Hamner every day. Hamner Avenue is already overloaded with traffic. This will cause undue stress and aggravation to local residents. Again, that was Keith Shook. This is from Rihanna Leith, Planning Commission. Good afternoon. I'm writing you this email in order to express mine and my family's concerns about the proposed project by the developer Frontier Homes. I would like to state first off that no one has ever contacted anyone at our residence located at 1955 Paddock Lane in regards to our position on this building project. This is a very large project which will impact our neighborhood and the surrounding families in a drastic way. My husband and I have 4 young children. As a whole, our family is very much in opposition of this project. We believe the developers did not take into consideration the effects this project will have upon us and our children. In its present form, Frontier Homes 19 multifamily 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms, 3-story unit and hotel and outdoor entertainment project will disrupt our community's current level of peace. To start off with, our now peaceful cul-de-sac will be impacted with traffic. This concerns our family because we have very young children who love to play in our front yard and ride their bikes and scooters in our neighborhood. We also fear the large amount of traffic through the horse trails because we have animals and believe the traffic will disturb their peace. Another concern we also have is the noise from the apartments and the concert space. We were offered no sound barrier, no walls to drown out the potential noise. The height of this apartment building project is one of our biggest concerns. As stated, we have children. We choose to live on the cul-de-sac and at the end where the back of our property is open to the current open field. Building a 3-story apartment complex gives the apartment tenants total direct access to look into our backyard where our young children are. This is disturbing because our family now has to worry about onlookers staring into our yard and down onto our children. We are very strongly opposed to a 3-story building being built where people can look into our yard and watch our family. Again, as stated, Frontier Homes has never contacted our family, never cared to ask us how we felt about this project we are strongly opposed to. As a whole, our family believes Frontier Homes has provided insufficient remediation to address all of our local residents' concerns. Due to this, we strongly believe that Frontier Homes and the city should reconsider going forward on construction of the 3-story apartment complex project and urge the Planning Commission to take into consideration the impact it will have upon our families and our rural properties. Corey and Rihanna Sosa. And that's it.
All right, do you now want me to read this? Okay. Public comment. Now is the time to dial in for public comment. You will be placed in a queue and your call will be answered in the order received. You will have 3 minutes to speak, and the call will disconnect promptly at the end of 3 minutes. You will need to call during each item you wish to speak upon. Callers are asked to abide by public decorum and use language that is appropriate to a public environment. Please dial 951-582-5557 now. Choose not to call in. Please email your public comments to your Planning Commission at ci.norco.ca.us. Please identify the item you're referencing.
You have 3 minutes to speak. Your time starts now. It doesn't like me.
Who's coming over?
I'm not touching it.
One.
Come on. Call me back. The delay.
Oh, they're still in the queue?
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to check if the caller's still in the queue.
I think it is.
Time I watched it, it said call. I'm only on an IT internship. I'm still learning. I know.
Yeah.
Take it with you.
Yeah. It's kind of. Yeah, this one's without the whole.
Hit the circle. Don't touch it.
Here, let me do that for you. Oh my gosh.
Let me have him call myself.
Another desk just for us.
You have 3 minutes to speak. Your time starts now.
Good evening, members of the commission here. Because of the technical difficulties here, I'd like to go ahead and I did submit an email, but it partially got, my name was misspoken there. My name is Angel Esparza. I'm a representative. I'm also a member of the Southwest Regional Council of Carpenters here in the Inland Empire. We believe that you may be impacted by the environmental impacts of the project, and that would be the Norco Valley Square project here on agenda item 2. The city should require the project to be built utilizing a local, skilled, and trained workforce. Local hire and skilled and trained workforce requirements reduce construction-related environmental impacts while benefiting the local economy.
Angel?
In a recent
Angel,
yes?
I've already read your email. That's the only public comment you get to make. Okay?
Well, you put it under Angela. My name is Angel.
I corrected it.
So do I have to stop? What are you saying?
Yes, sir, because I read your entire email.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any more calls in the queue? We're done.
Okay, we're going to close the public comments now and bring it back to us for discussion and/or
Disconnected.
whatever we'd like to. Go ahead, Phil.
Evidently, we're disconnected. I don't. I'm gonna make a couple comments before we make a motion. One of which is for the benefit of not just the audience, but for the other commissioners. I mean, Pat knows, she's been here as long as I have, almost. We've never seen this level of scale or complexity on a single project. We've had a lot of projects, a lot of them come across. None of them has ever been of this level of scale and complexity. We've had projects that have impacted neighbors in Corona. We've had projects that had to do with zone changes. We've had lots of different projects. I also am going to tell you that I would like to change a couple of conditions. I'm going to try and talk close to my microphone. I'd like to change a couple of conditions before we make a motion. Now I got to go find them, so you're going to have to be patient because I'm disconnected.
Have been for years. Huh?
The first one had to do with Condition 11 says this approval does not include the approval for any kind of entertainment and/or farmers markets.
Okay, what page are you on?
Sorry, page 4 of the resolution number 11.
But excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Phil. Before you go on, there is a procedure that you skipped. That's the applicant has the opportunity, should he choose to do so, to respond to comments.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Joan.
Would the applicant like to come back up and rebut anything?
I was just so excited by your motion that I wanted to save it.
Well, now I feel like I'm cutting you off. So if you want to hear from me, so be it. If you'd rather have me sit back.
Go ahead.
All right. I would just like to quickly say, I actually want to thank all of the residents and speakers who got up here. I'm really impressed by the level of decorum. And I've been in a lot of leagues in a lot of cities, and they get pretty wild sometimes. And I'm really impressed by the city residents, and I'm glad they came out. I do want to just, there's a theme where even the ones who are not necessarily opposed to the project are opposed to the location. And so I do just want to stress in response to the residents directly that, I'm not asking for a zone change. This isn't me coming in and asking to change the rules of the city in this location. This is what this property is zoned for. I'm not asking to change it. And on that same tone, the idea that, I haven't listened to anybody or that I don't care, this property is zoned for, 19 acres at 30. The allowable density is 570 units. There's no requirement for a cool food garden to use 5 acres to try to do that. You can go, it's zoned for all residential up to 30, and then there's density bonuses that kick in if no one develops this property within a certain amount of time, that you could get up to 665 units. So I hope residents know that we are, as Tim said at the beginning, we are a family-owned company here based in the Inland Empire. Our reputation matters. We will continue to own this property even after it's built out. And we were very hard to bring something that I agree, it's compared to what has come before it, it's a major impact, but it's at the lower end. 395, 19 acres divided by 395 units is still barely over 20. So we're bringing the minimum here. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I did want to say to Paddock Lane residents, I think there was perhaps a misunderstanding that the wall on the south boundary is for privacy. That's actually just for security. We understand the privacy concerns, and we thought a lot about it. I've learned way more about tree species than I have for any other project in my career. I mean, I could bring up my landscape architect if anybody wanted to get in the nitty-gritty, but when we studied what trees, what are the maturity heights, how fast do they get there, how do we, as quickly as possible, provide essentially a wall of trees on the south boundary. That's what addresses privacy concerns, not the wall. The wall's just for security. And you can see in your landscape, our conceptual landscape plan, you can see along the south boundary, it's an absolute forest of trees along the south boundary. And even until, even beyond before they're at full maturity, we have committed to basically what are called enhanced privacy features on every single building that faces Paddock Lane. So the windows you don't just come out and then you look down your window. The windows angle upwards so that no one, as somebody said, no one wants to be swimming in the pool and have people looking down on them. Of course, and we just have designed the project to account for that. You have upward-facing windows. The balconies are rotated versus a standard unit. They'll be screened. I don't mean a screen like open this. I mean like visually screened, whether metal or whatever the material is. My architects can talk about it if we want to go into it. But basically, I just wanted to say there are a ton of privacy features built into this site plan. And they didn't all come right away. It was a collaborative process again, reaching out to all these neighbors and trying to address their concerns. To the residents that on Paddock Lane that said we never reached out to them, we not only do we do everything required through EIR noticing, but all of the noticing that the city requires. You have to notice your neighbors. On top of that, I could call my colleague up here to tell you firsthand, he literally door knocked on every one. Some of the residents that were latecomers to reaching back out to us, we even asked them, how have you never answered and gotten back to us until now? And he said, I have a renter on the property. And so, I guess that's how he didn't get any notices. So I just did want to say, push back a little bit on the outreach. Now, the only thing I'm guilty of in terms of outreach is we weren't able to hold public events like we would have wanted to in any other year. But there's just nothing I can do about that with COVID. But we did do a strenuous outreach effort. I'll be quiet now and let you go. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay.
All right. Here we go. Page 4 of the resolution. It's condition 11. John, you're dismissed. Thank you so much. It says this approval does not include the approval for any kind of entertainment and it says famers, but I believe it's farmers markets. Approval of an entertainment permit and or a swap meet permit. I just want to get some clarification on this condition as it relates to what's been proposed for the common area. So my understanding is that it is intended to be, the whole reason behind the common area is so that there would be markets and other things there. Is that true? And then in which case this condition is a little challenging. I don't know if the rest of the commission finds that to be the case.
Can't even find the...
What's that?
I can't even find which page you're talking about.
It's resolution 04.
I see. I got it.
You want to come over? You got it? Okay, so condition 11, the whole food garden concept is something that the developer is suggesting as a major element, and yet we've got a condition in here that says you're going to require a special permit for it.
You see it, Alma?
Okay, Alma, can you respond on how we might modify that?
This approval, let's see. This approval does not include approval of any kind of entertainment or no farmers market. Approval of the entertainment and or swap meet is required for regular reoccurring entertainment or farmer market, and approval of a special event permit is required for occasional entertainment and or farmer market events.
So so what's being proposed on the Hamner side there is inherently this. So they're going to require, we are requiring them to have a permit for it every single time that they want to operate it? Okay.
I just, that statement to me just means that whatever permits are going to be required are not included in this approval.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, isn't that?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
It just, yeah.
Okay.
Mike.
Yeah.
Mike.
We require that type of permit for Silver Lakes.
Right. No, I got you. Okay. Item number 22, which is on page 6. It says the developer and subsequent owners, and this is, and the only reason that it came to my attention was the wording subsequent owners. Typically, a conditional use permit does not transfer from owner to owner. Is that correct?
No.
It does transfer from owner to owner?
So, use permits run with the land.
Okay, got it. Page 7, condition number 24, and it was in response to one of the statements by one of the citizens who contributed. It doesn't have a requirement here for moving vans or visitor parking. Do you have it in front of you, Alma? It just says standard parking spaces. And then it talks about the side, that following condition talks about the size. But it doesn't have a requirement, which is typical for apartment buildings, that there would be an area for moving, some sort of moving equipment, and there would be some spaces for visitors. Now, the visitor spaces can be the standard 9 by 20.
That's correct.
But it doesn't say anything about a moving. It doesn't say anything about a large moving van space.
That is correct. That condition doesn't say that. I mean, definitely could be required as a condition of approval.
Okay. And I think that's it. Those were the ones that I highlighted, and then I think the other ones were answered by staff regarding water service and sewer service. So that's all for me on the conditions of approval.
Mark, any discussion?
Yeah, a couple of things. Construction access. I didn't see anything in here about limiting construction access to not be in and out of Hamner. I mean, is that something we would normally do? Would we normally limit construction access to a side street?
We can do that. I mean, traditionally, though, on construction, it just depends on where the access needs to be. Usually, for example, there was 2 entrances for the CarMax, when they were doing their project. Primarily, they're coming off of Valley View because of the impacts related, but they were coming in out of both, but primarily out of Valley View. It depends on what traffic loads there are. I would imagine most deliveries and access is going to come off of Hamner, not off of 3rd Street.
I mean, deliveries is one thing, but I mean, this is a pretty major construction project. I don't know that we want that access to be in and out of Hamner for the construction phase of this project.
Well, I think you're going to negatively impact the schools in and out for that purpose, because you're going to have to come into 3rd Street, then turn into that area to come in and out. I don't think it has enough space to accommodate trucks going to come in, slow down, because your vehicle is coming, assuming they're coming southbound, let's say on Hamner, they're going to have an area clearly to stage because the road's wide enough to ingress and egress. On 3rd Street, it's a little more compact for construction activities for the larger vehicles. But we would certainly work that out with the contractor if it was developed as far as what their plan was and what we want to do as far as mitigations to not track out dirt, operation hours, et cetera, for construction purposes.
Okay. And as I look at the plan, there's 7 buildings basically that have apartments that were the sort of the area of concern of the 3 stories overlooking the residents that are there now. Have we, just in my head, the ones that are closest to that line either don't have to be 3 stories or can be somehow, this plan could be modified to either set them back or do something else. I mean, what other measures were looked at to prevent that overlook issue? I got the mitigation issues. I mean, that's certainly laudable. I mean, that's something that's important for the mitigation issues, but I mean, the garages could go there. I mean, something else could go in that spot, I would think, rather than them having to be apartments that overlook. Was anything else considered in a design phase to address that?
Alma?
Do you want the developer to address that?
Either one, yeah.
Either one of you.
Go ahead.
The answer to the question is yes. The design that's in front of you today is, many iterations from where we started. This does go back to my point about that we're actually at the minimum density, really. The buildings are oriented so that you have the minimum number of units. So you're right about 7 buildings, but that's actually a small number of units because they're oriented long ways. And then again, those units themselves will be specialized units, different from that same unit in any other building. Will have a different configuration in terms of the privacy features.
Oh, no.
Okay.
Anything else, Mark?
No, but I do share the concern about traffic. I mean, that is a congested area already. I realize that we need this type of a housing program, but I do share that concern about traffic in that area.
I agree. Discussion? I mean, anybody can discuss anything. Janet?
Well, yeah, I mean, my concern, I've lived in Norco for pretty much all my life. So, Hamner, I guess my biggest concern is we're taking a very small, I mean, in perspective of our city, a really small area, and we're putting a lot of people in one place with only 2 accesses. So you've got an access to 3rd Street, you've got access to Hamner. And even if there was just, 2 people per, because the apartment buildings themselves are not that large. I mean, there's more single or 1-bedroom apartments. So it's like there's a majority of them 1-bedroom, then the 2-bedroom, and then very few 3-bedroom. But that's 1,000 people minimum. I do want to say something to the public, though. Apartment dwellers are not bad people. And apartment dwellers actually have horses who board. So there are people who can move to Norco that can and own horses. They just can't have them on their property because they can't afford it. But they do board animals. So just keep that, in your mind. But traffic's probably one of the biggest concerns, to have something this large in a small area.
I think something we should look at, if we're thinking about passing this, is the hours of operation. Because I think from 7 to 11 is a really big, especially with food area. I mean, there's going to be a lot of noise and music and everything, and people are living there. I think at least we should temper that a little bit. I also am concerned about all the things that were proposed, but they don't meet the standards. So it seems like we're allowing a lot of things to go by that otherwise we would require. Let's look at page 10 on the site plan. Propose 1.8 parking spaces per unit. That's what's proposed, and the CG zone and Norco Municipal Code says not less than 2 roofed parking spaces. You come down to building setbacks, front and side street, 23 minimum proposed. 25 is what's required. There's just a bunch of that where we're changing things and allowing things to happen, which will make it, even to me, more condensed. I also am very concerned with the traffic. I'm not a traffic engineer, but all you have to do is drive on Hamner when the school's going on, and at 2nd or even at 6th Street, and you can't get by there. I mean, you literally can't get by there. We're adding, let's say, 800 more cars, 1,000 more cars. It's not going to work. It just is not going to work. We're trying to put too much in a small space, in the wrong location, as far as I'm concerned. The project, I like the project, I like the architecture, I like the different concepts. I just don't think it belongs there, and it's too dense for what the area, and it's not even that it's not allowed, it's just that logistically, it doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. So those are my concerns about the project.
So I'm just, for the benefit of the two new commission members, part of the reason that I asked that we go through the conditions is because in a minute I'm going to make a motion that we deny this entire project. When I do it, it's going to get appealed. When it gets appealed, if we didn't modify the conditions, it goes forward without the modifications. So consider any modifications. The comments will go to the council with the appeal, but the conditions, once we make the modification to the conditions, it gets modified and it goes forward with the modified conditions. So if anybody has any additional comments, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to make a motion that we deny.
Yeah, I do. That fence needs to be higher than 6 feet.
Yeah. Well, again, though, like he said, the fence isn't for privacy.
Well,
So, I mean,
but I know, but this is a very long fence, and 6 feet is not that tall.
It's true behind the grocery outlet.
I really believe that
Yeah,
fence
that's
should
true.
be higher, not for security purposes, because you're looking at a community, and when you get people do weird things, and animals, you can kill a horse by feeding it something it shouldn't be eating. That's just a fact.
Are you comfortable with 8 feet?
I would say 10 or 12 feet.
10 or 12, I think.
The only problem with it when it gets really tall is all of a sudden, I mean, just in the experience of what we've had in other projects, once it gets really tall, it actually creates a new hazard because if the site is already up 4 feet and then we go 10 feet on top of it.
That would make it really tall.
Yeah. And it creates a different kind of nuisance, but I'm totally open to whatever the commission. I mean, Pat.
I just think it needs to be a taller fence, because it'll be 6 feet on the apartment side. It'll be taller on the back side, and I just think it needs to be a taller fence.
Let's modify it. Let's modify it to 8 feet or 10 feet. I mean,
sounds good.
I think 10. I like 10, but it's because again, it's about you don't want people throwing stuff over the fence, chucking stuff over the fence. Yeah. But my other concern here, though, is I think the developers really done a tremendous job with what they've got, and we have this zoned for this purpose.
Right.
So, I mean, if not this, then who? I mean, or then what?
Just to be clear, it's zoned as a part of the all the automotive. We threw a housing overlay on it at one point. We also have the Caltrans lot that's over next to, that's right over here.
Yeah, it's right across the way.
Right, that one's also got an overlay on it. The one at River and Second also has an overlay on it because they were the only remaining lots that were available for high-density housing. So
We
the
also
fact that
have something going on at River Road, right, that we're putting.
Yeah, Second and River.
Yeah, Second and River.
But the point is, still, that's what we zoned this for, right? So, I mean, we did deny this one, and what's the next one going to be? Because we can't just keep preventing something from going in here. Something's going to go in here. I mean, so.
Good thoughts.
You know, we.
Phil, this is more on what the direction Phil's trying to take. I'm not sure what you accomplish by trying to modify conditions of something that, unless you're going to approve it, that is going to be denied and appealed. You're probably better off if in fact it's denied, saying, and here's the reason why we denied it, City Council, and here's what these conditions should be, or these were the concerns that we had. Because, I mean, it's de novo when it goes to the council. They change anything they want to, and they'll take into account your comments, but the fact that you amended a condition on something you didn't approve really doesn't have any effect.
Right.
All right. Do I need to make a motion on each one of these, or can I just make a motion on all of them, since they all came before us as one?
You can make,
Okay, I'm going to make I would like to make a motion to deny the conditional use permit 2020-02, conditional use permit 2020-05, variance 2020-10, site plan 2020-06, and tentative parcel map number 37939, and the environmental impact report.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Member Jafarian and a second from Chair Hedges. Chair Hedges?
Yes.
Member Askey?
No.
Member Delap?
Yes.
Member Jafarian?
Yes.
Motion to deny passed.
Okay, any requests for items? Did you ever do any, did you ever put together what happened in the past? Yes.
Farming uses?
Yes.
Unfortunately not.
Okay, that's all right. I'd still like that sometime.
Absolutely. It's on my list of things to do.
Meeting adjourned.
Hey, John.